Yeah, all right. So, finger picking. Now, I am by no means an expert finger picker or chicken picker for that matter, but I use my fingers all the time, whether it's lead or rhythm or whatever. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some simple ways to start, right? Using your pick and your fingers at the same time. Real basic chord progression. We're going to go through, I'll give you some options, how I like to think about it, what strings I like to pluck, what strings I like to pick when I'm doing chords, and just give you some ideas, right? And just kind of walk you through how I would play a certain chord progression and then see if that works for you. And definitely try this in your lead playing. It just has opened up so many doors for me and different sounds, right? You were always looking to keep tweaking our sounds and getting more and more sounds out of our instrument, and plucking strings is an awesome way to do that. So click the link below. That's going to have some, ebooks, all that kind of stuff that you can go over. There's going to be scales, trials. You can try out stuff, for a couple days or whatever. Always check the links down below. There's always some good stuff. Sometimes there's just lessons that aren't on YouTube down there as well that are awesome. So let's zoom in for a closer look. All right, so what I'm going to do is a quick explanation of, what some people might call chicken picking if you're using it in country, but we're going to kind of expand upon that, whereas we're not always going to be doing up and down strokes, picking. Sometimes it's easier just to use our fingers, and you can look all sorts of players, whether it's Jimmy Page or, Carl Verheyen, he's an awesome studio guy, or all sorts of people. You can see Zach Wilde of Ozzy. All these guys will throw in and use their fingers sometimes because it's easier to string skip if you don't need to do multiple picked runs and you're just reaching down to grab a string and play a note or two at a time. Sometimes just using your fingers rather than picking works fantastic. So in this case, I got my capo on the 3rd fret, and I'm doing a D, what would be a C add 9, right? Drop it down to the B note. Same fingers down here, back. Right, that's my chord progression. So what I'm going to do is, if I'm picking a D, I'll use my pick to get the D and the G string, and my fingers, middle finger and ring finger, to catch the B and E string. So what I'm doing is I'm going, right? So I've picked D, G, pluck B, pick, and then pluck, pluck, pick, pluck. Right? Now, when I go up to this C, I'm going to take my pinky off, and I'm going to keep this E open. When I go up here, I'm going to do basically the same thing, but I'm just going to not be playing the D string, so I'm going to pick the A and the G and pluck the B and the E. Now, sometimes if I decide I want to use the D string, right? I'm doing like a hammer on. I'll use my middle finger and this guy to pluck the G string and the B string, right? So it just kind of depends. If I usually have it to where it gets, this pick gets the top 2 notes, this gets the bottom 2 notes, or wherever, depending on what chord you're playing. So in the particular pattern, it is D, G, B pluck, G pick, E, B, pick, B. Okay, I'm going to do that twice on the D. Then I'm going to go up and I'm going to take my second finger up to what would be that C add 9 chord, but I'm going to take my pinky off. So I'm going to leave the E Same basic pattern, but we're not using the D string, so it's going to be the same thing. We're going A, G with the pick, right? We're going down to B pluck, back to G pick, and then, right? So pluck, pluck, pick, pluck. Same strings, right? Now, sometimes I'll do the, or, right, and go back from pick to pluck, and I'll just be going back and forth between two strings, like, say, the D, or just mix it up. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to use these fingers for what would be a lot of the upstrokes. Right? So where I would typically do an upstroke, I'm going to use my finger. And while we're doing this, right, it starts to lend itself to being able to do all that kind of stuff, because your fingers are now used to picking and plucking at the same time. So you can string skip. Right? So I'm using my second and third finger, or these two guys, right? If we're assuming this is, right, one, to use what would be a lot of the upstrokes. And it's really beneficial because you can start flying, because you're not having to, get your pick all stuck in between strings. You can keep your hand in one spot. So that's why I like to start with something like that. Now, if we want to do that, I just went, right, the same thing that we've normally done, and I pull off D suspended fourth, so I put my pinky down, pull off, and then just go to the E, B, G. And then I'll go D suspended second. And you can pick or pluck the G string. Alright, so we got, right, and you can hammer it back down. Okay, and then right, and just mix it up, It's going to be foreign, sometimes that when we're all practicing and when I'm doing these lessons and stuff like that, not everything's going to be perfect, but you just practice it, right? You're going to miss a note here or there or whatever, but that's part of the experience, right? We don't all have to be perfect. Just keep it slow. Realize that you're going to miss some notes when you're first trying it, or even if you've been doing it for a long time, that it's going to happen and it's natural, right? No big deal, unless you're on stage, and then it sucks. But, whatever, we're just practicing. This is why we're practicing. We're developing a new technique. Right? So just mess with that. Instead of doing all those upstrokes. Right? I'm minimizing my wrist movement by using my fingers. So give that a shot. Mess around with that chord progression because it's cool because you get that string skip in between. You know, when you go up to the C and drop down to B, back to C, you can skip that D string and work on the string skip from there, or stick with a chord that has all the notes all together, like the D chord, right? You can do D suspended fourth, D suspended second. You can hammer on, right? You can go. Right, and do that. So give that a shot. Use your fingers. Don't be shy. It's always good to have as many tricks in your bag as you can.